Good afternoon. Welcome to all food business operators in attendance from MII and IBEC representatives, logistics and transport companies, food safety authority representatives, local authority veterinary inspectors and DFM staff. My name is Peter Maher. I'm the current head of division for Veterinary Public Health Implementation Division. And it's the veterinary staff and technical staff from this division that you will have met working in DFM approved plants. This is the first webinar in a series of 12 Department of Agriculture and Veterinary Public Health Traces Classic Training webinars. As with all our training to date, the purpose of this webinar is to continue to enable food business operators to be better prepared for UK import controls on products of animal origin from October the 1st of this year. Today, we are focusing particularly on the composite products, which we will be defining and classifying, as well as generating and verifying export health certificates as detailed in the agenda on your screen now. We will be continuing training on the Traces Classic platform. However, the EU Commission have informed us that Traces NT will be operational from October the 1st. In essence, this will mean that the only change will be that the software that enables the completion of the export health certificate will have a different look and feel. And my colleague, Lorna Meaney, will explain more about that shortly. We also have been continuing with certification trials, which are proving very useful. One of the big learning outcomes to date is that food business staff generating export health certificates and uploading documents need to be very familiar with the operation of the Traces system and all the traceability documents that will be required by the certifier to generate the export health documents. All food businesses are urgently requested to engage with your supervising veterinary inspector and DFM staff on the ground so that you will have identified what your CN codes are and what category the products you produce fall into. And that's partially what we're doing here today. Some housekeeping. This webinar will finish at 4:30, if not before. The agenda you can see on the screen, so I'll let you read that. There will be an opportunity to ask questions after the presentations have been delivered. You can ask questions via the chat function on the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. All questions will be answered with information that is currently available either during the webinar, if time permits, or in written replies afterwards. Needless to remark, there are answers to questions that are not known, and most of these have already been put to the UK authorities, as they will be the ultimate arbitrators, and we still await their replies. In due course, all who registered attended will receive written replies to all questions posed during the webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the DFM YouTube channel with links to the Traces page on the gov.ie website. Again, all who registered attended will also receive these links in due course. I would again urge you to determine the type of product you produce and to do this before October the 1st. That is, whether it is a composite product or a meat prep or whatever, and be familiar with the correct CN codes and therefore what type of export health certificates are required. For vets in attendance, this webinar has been approved for 2 Veterinary Council CVE points. DFM Learning and Development Unit will issue certificates to you in due course for this. Before I hand over to my colleague Lorna Meaney, I would like to remind you that there are a total of 12 Traces training webinars scheduled in this training series, which begins today. Today's webinar will be followed by a webinar on groupage, certification and sealing on the 8th of July, as displayed in the training schedule on your screens now. If you wish to attend further training webinars but have not received the details, please email traces@agriculture.gov.ie to request the training schedule and invitation to register links to all the remaining training events in this series. I will now hand you over to my colleague Lorna.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to share with you some of the preparations we have been making for the 1st of October, when export health certificates will be required for products of animal origin to GB. And we have been engaging in some internal trials from the point of application for a certificate to when it's signed by the veterinary inspector. And there are a number of key learnings that I want to share with you today. The first one being that there is an administrative challenge there, both for food businesses and for DAFM. And it's very important that you have considered that you have the appropriate IT and personnel infrastructure in place for the 1st of October, that you have identified key personnel within your organisation who have good IT skills, but that they also have a knowledge of the supply chain and a knowledge of where they can find the information that's going to be necessary to complete the application on the Traces platform, and the information that's going to be necessary to support certification. So the advice is to put in a coherent, streamlined procedure where the people involved in making the application for the export health certificate have easy access to all the information, because it may at the moment be there but be stored in various different places. So that came across in the trial. Traces training is extremely important, and I would urge you to engage with the training that Peter has outlined to you there in as far as possible. And communication is really important with your suppliers around what traceability information that you are going to require from the 1st of October. And also with your customers for information that you're going to need to complete the Traces application, and with your logistics partners as well, just to identify gaps that there may be in the process or the information flow. So that came across in all of the trials. Now, as regards the Traces system itself and the platform, the Commission have indicated that the new NT platform will be available for export to GB from the 1st of October. But the training on Traces Classic will continue as already notified. NT is a newer, more intuitive, easier version of the same platform. It's a bit like an upgrade to Microsoft when a new version of Microsoft Word comes out. That's the kind of difference we're talking about. The content of the existing and planned training on Classic is still very relevant because it's the same certs. The GB certs, as far as we know, won't change. GB would be the ones who would make that decision, and they've indicated that they have the certs that they intend to use from the 1st of October on their website, and they'll demand the same information and the same fields to be filled in. Training will commence on Traces NT probably towards the end of August, and it really will be around the nuances and the improvements that have been made to the platform and the differences that there may be, the technical differences that there may be, but the same certification requirements will still apply. So that's why I can't stress it enough. It's very important that people attend this training webinar, because we are not only training on the Traces platform, we're also training on the certification requirements and the meaning of the fields that will be mandatory from the 1st of October to be filled in. Just to say that engagement with the Traces system must happen in advance of the 1st of October. You should all be registered at this stage on Traces, and please try and familiarise yourself with it as far as you can. The other things that came through in the internal trialling around certification were that people should be aware of what model certificate they require for their particular product, what CN code applies to their products, and what certification requirements apply for each product. They should have access to information from their suppliers and a process for gathering this information together into one place to make it easy to apply for the cert, basically to streamline the process. And just to remember, this came through in the trial as well, that chilled, ambient and frozen product, they're mutually exclusive and may require different certification. And individual consignees require individual certs. So that means that we will be asking you to consolidate as far as possible, and rather than having 5 different consignees, if you could actually go to one destination in the UK and distribute from there. So basically to go to a distribution centre where you will only require one cert rather than looking for multiple certs for the one consignment. The other thing that came through was people who were involved in just-in-time trade. You should really liaise with your UK customers at this stage and request advance orders in as far as possible. And I suppose advise them that there will be new limitations associated with the new certification process, and there is an extra step now in the chain in getting the product across to GB. Another really important message in this webinar, Peter has already mentioned it, would be that you make contact with your veterinary inspector who has responsibility for your premises, or the certifying officer who has responsibility for your premises, and that you would advise of your anticipated busy times, advise of when you will be requiring certification, the type of certification you're going to require, discuss the support documents that you have available, and I suppose to be aware that the plant veterinary inspector must abide by the principles of certification and the official controls regulations, so they're bound by those. And GB have indicated to us that from the 1st of October, the BCPs won't be in place, but that they will be doing 100% documentary checks, and that they will be doing some checks at the point of destination. What they will be, they haven't clarified to us, but just bear in mind that at Dublin Port, 67% of consignment rejections were based on documentary failures alone. So it's important we get this right and we get our documents correct. And I suppose in particular, this is the case for just-in-time products. It's very important to ensure that all the information provided is accurate in the first instance, rather than having to go back and revise information that you've already put in, because that will lead to delays. And I suppose with that particular product, that can have serious repercussions. Just to say that we also have a supply chain working group where we have been working with logistics companies. And I suppose some of the main concerns that have been highlighted there are around people being ill-prepared previously on the 1st of January, and that there may still be people out there who are not prepared for the 1st of October. And I suppose a question has been asked around out of hour service and how that might work. And I suppose just to say that DAFM do have limited resources, and in general, certification should take place within normal working hours. In exceptional circumstances, we may accommodate out of hours on a case-by-case basis. But I suppose in DAFM, we're very keen to work with FBOs to see if there are solutions. But businesses need to try and be as flexible as possible in making amendments to maybe supply chain arrangements that they had previously in place. So the other concerns would be around groupage and how that might work. So just to say that we had one trial during the week, I haven't had a readout from that just yet, and that there are a number of other trials planned over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And as soon as we have information on that, that will be shared with you. And the plan is to try the linear and consolidation groupage models and to see how they work. We also have end-to-end testing planned with DEFRA, and that will involve a desktop exercise on the October the 1st requirements, and they will cover the timeline for the IPAFS notifications and the details required on documents, including the export health certificate. And they have indicated that they will share with us the mandatory fields, which will be very important for us to know as soon as possible. And we are going to try and test a range of commodities, including the just-in-time trade. Just also to flag that there is a webinar coming up, and it will be a joint IE-GB webinar sometime around the week of the 19th of July. The date hasn't exactly been nailed down yet. So where GB will share their learnings from the 1st of January, I think it'll be a very valuable opportunity to see what way they're thinking. So I would encourage you all to attend that. And we also have an expert technical working group with GB, which will be set up next week, where we will try to get answers to some of the open questions we have around trade GB from the 1st of October. So moving back to what we're here to discuss today, which is composite products, I suppose just to say composite products are a very complex area. We still have a lot of open questions which have been referred to GB. To date, we haven't had answers to those, but they have said to us that they will answer them as soon as possible, and we'll share those with you as soon as we can. The information we are giving you here today is to the best of our knowledge currently, and it's based on GB advice on their website and some extrapolation from the old EU law, the pre-animal health law, which the UK have indicated that they are adopting. And Hannon will point this out along the way when he's giving his presentation. And just to stress, we may not have all the answers today, but we will take all questions away and follow up with answers to you as soon as we possibly can. So on that note, I'll hand you back to Peter.